Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. So a very short video to talk about some very important historical, I would say, big questions we have which do not have a specific answer just because they're shrouded in a lot of mystery. We're gonna start off with this one. This is the Trilithon. There are three giant stones on the wall of the Temple of Baalbek. Temple of Jupiter at Baalbek. The blocks lie 7 meters high, which is pretty crazy, and each weighs about 900 to 1000 tons. That's right, let me just repeat myself again so this makes sense to you. Each of the blocks which were put there in the middle, were lifted, weighs about almost 1000 tons. Now that is just crazy. The Roman bureaucracy carefully documented any construction, but we have not found any data on mining or transportation of the blocks for this Temple of Jupiter at Baalbek. There are simply no technical means to do such a feat back in the day. How was this even physically possible? The answer to this is that it was not possible. This was made by a completely different civilization and it was not the Romans. If you deny this, then you have to prove how the heck were they able to move these huge massive chunks of stone, 3 of them, and of course even more because the temple was completely demolished, most of it, in the past. Okay, what technology they used and how did they manage that, because literally back in the day this was physically impossible to lift 1000 tons of a stone. All right, one piece of stone 7 meters high. All right, it's just no, it's impossible. It's physically impossible back in the day. So guys, another example that our history is a freaking lie. Why is that? Because the past has many things like this and there is no explanation. We move on to the next one, which is again even maybe same or even more interesting, which is the following in Italy. This is an engraving from the 19th century in Italy. The Italians had a column in the middle of the square. No one knew where it came from, and inquisitive Italians decided to see how the column had been founded. They excavated it for 15 meters. And it turned out that it was not the foundation at all, but part of the monument that was buried 15 meters underneath. There are people in the engraving and it's amazing the size of the cultural layer. We're talking about 15 meters of a cultural layer, of a hidden monument, okay? Now, just let me just ask a question. How was this monument completely buried under 15 meters? That must have been a huge landslide, like crazy, as in a reset, for example, right? So another example of how the past on Earth is completely different to what we think about, just because many things are hidden underneath at a very, very high depth. Now we move on to collections, guys. This is about collections, private collections, and this ring is an example of hyper technology used back in the day, a ring which was 2000 years old. This is from a private collection of the Dukes of Marlborough. Now, very important, this is believed to be the ring of the Roman Emperor Caligula. Alright, 2000 years old. The most interesting fact is the processing. Sapphire is super hard to work on, and working on it is very, very difficult. It's impossible to reproduce on it, as in figures, different details, as you can see here in this one, which is just amazing, without very high precision optics and high-tech tools. It's just impossible, okay? So, back in the day, 2000 years ago, someone had the technology to make this amazing ring and make this just super hyper detailed, alright, image of a person, of a woman on the ring. Now, someone can explain to me, please, how was this even possible more than 2000 years ago? Because sapphire, and as I repeat myself, this is really important to understand, sapphire is one of the most difficult stones to work on. You need very hyper precision optics and tools, okay, because otherwise you're gonna make a mess and it's not gonna work. So again, another example of how our history is just completely shrouded in the biggest of mysteries. We have a similar problem in India. You see, in many temples of India, we have perfect carvings. Columns in the temples of India, this is just one example, there's many, many more, clearly demonstrate a very high level of knowledge of the ancient craftsmen. The temple, for example, this one picture here, was erected in a record time, very fast, super fast, in the 10th century. Scientists cannot answer the question how the carved columns were created and why they are preserved in perfect condition to this day. They just simply do not understand, because without lathes and milling machines, it is simply impossible to produce such a thing. of pure perfection and just amazing spherical, like technology. It's just awesome. Like, you see this and you just immediately realize that the culture which made this is a completely advanced culture, which is not the one which supposedly existed back in the 10th century, right? It's just not. You know that, right, for a fact, because this is just too good for that. So guys, another example. So I've shown you examples from how many places? We've shown you from Europe, we've shown you from India, we've shown you from other places, which was the previous one, which was in Baalbek as well. So many places in this world which completely just break the book, break the rules, break the history at a very big scale. And here we have a Jade figurine depicting flying machines similar to the modern jet ski, have been found in the ancient Chinese culture of Hongshan. Among ancient cultures, the story of people flying in flying machines or water machines, okay, they're very common. Now, this is really interesting because this resembles a jet ski so much. It's just incredible, right? So effectively, back in the day in China, a different culture altogether, not the Chinese culture, had made this amazing representation of what they were seeing with their own eyes, as in there was a culture, a very advanced culture back in the day, who was using jet skis or some sort of like technology to fly or to float or whatever above the waters or above the sky, and they basically documented it in such a way in this amazing Jade figurine, right? So again, it's just freaking awesome how the past tells you exactly where our future is heading, because the reset of the societies happens every couple thousand years, and this is just an example of exactly that. The previous civilization which was ruling this planet thousands of years ago was really adept at making technology very similar to our modern 21st century technology. And finally, we have the following. This is the ancient Conqueror of Heaven. The story began in 1875 when one of the most ancient Indian temples was discovered in a written document. The document, it was written 2,400 years ago in that temple. And this document was really famous because the author of the manuscript, the scholar, has described the types of flying machines and their construction, and with the caveat that it was a compilation from older sources. So 2,400 years ago, this person made a compilation of flying machines which are even older than his own writings. At the end of the 19th century, this particular book was considered mythological because aviation was still in its infancy. But modern scientists, having studied this document, which is called the Vimankya Shastra, have unequivocally declared that this work was nothing more to do with fairy tales. It is competently written in technical work. Okay, let me just repeat that for a second. A competent technical document written 2,400 years ago about flying machines, which is based on a compilation of different documents that this person has compiled from the past. So it could be even more older than maybe like 3,000 years old. No idea, okay? So guys, again, this is just amazing. I just cannot believe how many layers of lies we have been living on and sleeping on. Now, of course, as always in these videos, you do not have to believe me, you do not have to accept everything I show you, but what you have to understand is just one simple thing. Your history, the history you have learned in history books, remember that it was written with a particular interest in mind. History is never, ever 100% neutral. It is written by the winners, by the people who remain, to sell you or to give you a certain perspective of the events of the past, and only that particular perspective. Let's just understand that and accept that that is the case. So guys, that's it for today's showcase. Hopefully you understood that this video is really important for, again, opening people's minds and making them understand that in reality, our past is much more complicated than the evolution theory or than, what they make it us believe in official history books, which omit and forget about all these things because of interest and, of course, conflict of interest, right? And guys, that's it for today's video. As always, I shall see you later and talk to you in the next upload. Bye.